Because we celebrate Halloween in Mexico, they call it what? Day of the Dead, where people believe the dead rise and walk the earth again, or as the folks at ACORN call it, voter registration day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, he has arrived. My guest is Matthew Vadum, senior editor at Capital Research Center, a think tank that studies left-wing advocacy groups and their funders. He has authored a book that we're going to be talking about here. It's called Subversion Inc. for Incorporated. It's his first book and the culmination of nearly 3 years of research and hundreds of interviews. And since joining the CRC in 2006, his work has been cited in more than 24 books and by multiple media outlets, including Fox News, Weekly Standard, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and the Christian Science Monitor. He's a graduate of Georgetown University's Master's Program in American Studies, and he lives and works in Washington, D.C. And Matthew, welcome back to the program.
Great to see you again, Mr. Liddy.
Now, ACORN, I think the majority of people, having been exposed to, on this program and on many others, the crimes of ACORN, and having heard that it has been broken up, I think that, well, that's that. Bad people got their comeuppance, and we don't have to worry about anything like that anymore. We can move on. But the fact is that they're still out there, and, well, as you say on the cover of your book, Subversion Inc., how Obama's ACORN red shirts are still terrorizing and ripping off American taxpayers. And how have they managed to pull that off?
Well, Mr. Liddy, what they've done is ACORN, the organization, which is now based in Brooklyn, is in bankruptcy court, Chapter 7. So they are dissolving if they haven't formally dissolved already. So they're if not dead, clinically, they're at least brain dead. So I guess one could say that about them before that.
But that's the organization. I mean, but the people, going through bankruptcy isn't going to harm those people.
Right. But what happened is they knew that this was going to happen. And before they declared, about a year before they declared bankruptcy on Election Day last year, they set in motion a process in which the state chapters separately incorporated themselves under new names. So here in D.C., the organization went from ACORN to Communities United. In New York, the New York ACORN chapter became New York Communities for Change. In Boston, it became New England United for Justice. California, it became Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. In Missouri, became Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment, MORE, more. And that's how these ACORN people operate. They're like a high-pressure boiler room sales operation, one of those sleazy things that once they get discovered by the authorities, they just pull up stakes and they relocate to another office building.
Okay, now,
Mr. and continue to operate doing what they do.
Right. Now, these different entities that they have created in these different states and what have you, are they still acting cooperatively and towards common goals? And is there some sort of a command and control structure that animates all these different outfits?
Well, they're definitely speaking to each other. Whether they have, they're going after the same old issues that they always went after: increasing the minimum wage and extorting banks, causing problems for them. The chapter in Missouri, the successor group in Missouri has been protesting banks and trying to shake them down for money. And they're just following the same old strategy of protesting in New York. And they were very unhappy at plans to bring a Walmart to New York City. And so the successor group, New York Communities for Change, started causing all sorts of trouble and campaigning against Walmart with its union buddies in SEIU and so on.
Now, this campaign against Walmart, what animates that? Is it the size of the big box store, or is it the fact that the Walmart people, for the most part, are not unionized?
Well, that's part of it. They want to bring these people into the radical community organizing family. They want their dues. They want their votes. They want them to work at election time to elect Democrats. Also, ACORN is motivated by, remember, ACORN used to be called, when it was founded in 1970, Arkansas Community Organizations for Change. They changed the name in 1977 when they decided to go national. So it has always peeved ACORN founder Wade Rathke and the other people involved in it that that a giant retailer from their own state of Arkansas, Walmart, has been so resistant to labor organizing. So they've always had a special place. They've always felt special contempt for Walmart and have fought it at every turn and been defeated.
Yeah, well, now,
one of their ACORN's rare defeats.
Isn't this sort of following the template that was first, as far as I know, carved out by Jesse Jackson? I mean, Jesse Jackson Sr., he shakes down corporations by saying, we're going to protest you and this, that, and the other thing, and then they pay him money.
Right.
And he goes away.
And the Reverend Jackson has said in speeches, he's given a rationale for it. He said, why did Jesse James rob banks? Because that's where the money was. Yeah. And ACORN and Saul Alinsky-inspired community organizers follow exactly the same logic. They shake down banks because banks have the money. They go in and they occupy their property and they surround the CEO's homes and dump garbage on his lawn and bang on the windows and the doors and frighten their children. Really, they are a gangster group. They're very much like the mafia, except that they're a left-wing, radical mafia.
Those are at least misdemeanors. I mean, the criminal acts doing some of those things, trespass and so forth. Has anyone ever pursued them criminally for doing that sort of thing?
These charges usually don't go anywhere, because the police will show up and order them to disperse, and they'll normally do so. But they keep doing it over and over again. This is a pattern of conduct for them. And so I've always thought, since I started studying ACORN, where I work, Capitol Research Center in D.C., I've always thought that it was about time that a proper federal racketeering investigation be opened into ACORN, because groups have been found liable and convicted under the criminal provisions of RICO for doing far less.
Yeah, well, I don't expect that in this administration you're going to get anything like that, because Obama used to work for them.
You're right, absolutely. Obama worked for ACORN. He taught their activists. He represented ACORN in court. He is an ACORN man through and through. He is ACORN's man in the White House right now, and you can see that he's running the country the way Saul Alinsky would if he were in charge. Dividing people, polarizing, not missing an opportunity to campaign. After he said he was not going to spike the football after assassinating Osama bin Laden, he's been doing nothing but spike the football. Exactly. Remember, he used that example when he talked about not wanting to show the photo. Right. His ridiculous excuse. We saw the photos of Uday and Qusay Hussein after the invasion of Iraq. I think the American people are mature enough to decide if they want to look at those photos or not.
I would certainly
and Obama's not to digress, but Obama's also been counterproductive, because now he's the father of 1,000 new conspiracy theories from people doubting that bin Laden is really dead, and it's his own fault.
Yeah, indeed it is. Yeah. Okay. Because we've only scratched the surface here. Okay. Now we're going to take a break for some news, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Vadum and I will return right after that. The phone number is 1-800-GG-LIDDY. That's 1-800-445-4339.
Radio has never sounded so red, white, and blue.
At work, I have it on. You guys are the best.
This is Radio America.
I have fun with the media, and we all know the press is really an independent, civic-minded, and nonpartisan group, like ACORN. In case you haven't been following my opponent's Get Out the Vote campaign, ACORN is helping to register groups previously excluded, overlooked, and underserved. Second graders, the deceased, Disney characters.
This is the G. Gordon Liddy Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, back with my very special guest, Mr. Matthew Vadum. He is the senior editor at the Capital Research Center. And we're talking about his brand new book. It's just out, and it's excellent. It's called Subversion Inc., or Subversion Incorporated. How Obama's ACORN red shirts are still terrorizing and ripping off American taxpayers. Now, it seems to me that the pattern of activity here is such that it would yield or lend itself to investigation for and prosecution of the RICO statutes. What say you on that, Matthew?
Hey, yes, what happened is ACORN, the organization itself, was convicted in an election in a voter fraud case in Nevada just last month. What happened is they were found guilty of unlawful compensation for registration of voters, which means that Nevada outlaws paying voter registration canvassers on the basis of the quantity of how many people they register, because it creates an incentive to register Mickey Mouse and Mary Poppins and Michael Jackson and Tony Romo and other people and fictional creatures that don't live in Nevada. So ACORN got convicted of this, and this was the first time ever that ACORN, the entity itself, has been convicted. Prior to that, as I discovered, I've got the most comprehensive list. There's a table in the book. I've got the most comprehensive list that I know of anywhere of at least 54 people connected to ACORN that have been convicted of voter fraud and related offenses in recent years. So I would say that I'm no lawyer, but you are, Mr. Liddy, right, Esquire, and you know that racketeering, a racketeering investigation could be warranted because there seems to be a habitual pattern here.
Yeah, pattern of activity.
Right. There's a pattern of activity of conduct that keeps being repeated over and over again and is across state lines, and that is the kind of gangsterism that the RICO statute was created to combat. And groups that have done far less, like, for example, that I think it was Operation Rescue, the pro-life group, all they did was harass people going to abortion clinics a little bit. As far as I know, they didn't beat people up. They just said, do you really want to do this? And that was enough for a RICO finding. So if they can be taken down under RICO, then surely ACORN can be. And with the new branches of ACORN that keep sprouting up, there's every reason to go after them now. Yet I don't think anything is actually happening in Congress, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, Congress wouldn't be the ones to go after them. It would be the Department of Justice. But in your book, Subversion Inc., you show an instance just out in San Diego with their lead organizer, ACORN's lead organizer, David Langstein, caught on tape suggesting that the Attorney General's investigation was a sham.
Right. That was after the undercover. That was after the series of undercover videos came out, engineered by the resourceful conservative activists Hannah Giles and James O'Keefe III, and they. What happened is those videos showed, for the most part, ACORN employees willing to facilitate criminal conduct. Giving advice on how to start a house of prostitution with taxpayer dollars and how to defraud banks and the IRS and so on. The Attorney General then, Jerry Brown, who's now the governor, took a long time hemming and hawing over whether he was going to investigate ACORN at all. And Lagenstein, whatever his name was, the ACORN operative in California, was bragging to a whole bunch of his comrades that the investigation was going to be a sham and not to worry about it, that ACORN would come out of it okay. So this is the kind of corruption that is just endemic to ACORN and to the sleazy figures, the sleazy political figures that are indebted to ACORN. And they owe ACORN because ACORN brings out the troops, brings out the voters on Election Day, living and dead.
Yeah, living and dead. Well, Brown is now, yet again, the governor of California, which may give you some idea of the problems that they've got out there in California.
And they actually voted him in.
Oh, yeah, no.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. He was the Governor Moonbeam the last time around.
California, unfortunately, seems to have a death wish.
Yeah, they have the most anti-business and what have you, policies and taxes and things of that sort you can think of. I mean, the population is fleeing California. But that's a whole different story.
Well, California's not left-wing enough for Saul Alinsky-type community organizers, though.
Wow.
It has a long way to go from their point of view.
No, the connection between Obama and ACORN could not really be more explicit or tight. I mean, this man was employed by him and advised him and all the rest. He has not seemed to suffer for that in the press.
He's pretended as if he's just an innocent bystander watching what's been going on with ACORN.
Yeah, but he was advising them legally and all the rest of it, and the press seems to have given him a total pass on this.
They asked a couple of questions, and that was about it. And then they let him. They left him alone regarding ACORN. And it definitely was not investigated properly prior to the election. Concerns, as you remember during the 2008 campaign, concerns about Obama's radicalism were dismissed as quaint, the quaint concerns of relics from the Cold War and as people who are paranoid or who are living in the past or, God forbid, Reagan supporters. This radicalism was not properly probed, and Obama has been a radical for a long time. His classmates said he was a Marxist-Leninist at the time he was in college.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem, and if he's not nowadays, it seems like he's only moved a little bit to the right.
Well, I think that's strictly for reasons of being reelected. His base seems, however, although they grumble, to stick with him, even though he does move somewhat to the right.
Absolutely. Something else that is in the book is it is possible that ACORN was funded by Venezuela's communist dictator Hugo Chavez, and it actually would make sense. I obtained the chief organizer of ACORN, Bertha Lewis's Rolodex, and in it, there's only 2 contacts from embassies. One is from the Venezuelan embassy. Chavez is transforming that into a communist country. The other one is from Bolivia. Bolivia, their strongman, Evo Morales, is trying to do the same thing, though he's probably not moving as quickly as Chavez. And there was a contact from Citgo, a Citgo executive named Andres Rangel, in the Rolodex. Citgo has long... Citgo is an arm of the Venezuelan government. It is owned by Venezuela. PDVSA, the parent company, is run by one of Hugo Chavez's generals. They have been giving money to groups in America for a long time. Casa de Maryland is an illegal immigrants group, I think out in the suburbs in Silver Spring, Maryland. Chavez gave $1.5 million to that. Chavez has been funding Citizens Energy Corporation, run by former Congressman Joe Kennedy in Massachusetts. Citgo provides low-cost home heating oil, and this is for propaganda purposes, to get Americans to think well of Venezuela and Hugo Chavez. It's what political scientists call public diplomacy. So he's been engaging in this sort of thing for a long time, and the connections to Bertha Lewis of ACORN's last chief organizer are very, very worrying. There's also more in the book. Brandon Darby, who's been on this show before with me, was a former left-wing community organizer. When he was still a leftist, he traveled to Caracas, Venezuela, to ask for money from the Chavez administration. And while he was down there, the Chavez people asked him to start a guerrilla army in the swamps of Louisiana. It sounds pretty wacky, but remember that Chavez allows Islamic terrorist groups to operate openly in Venezuela. Hamas and Hezbollah operate in Caracas, like they're right there. So when you put all of this together, it doesn't sound quite so implausible, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't.
And yet no one seems to have wanted to investigate this connection. It actually amazes me that there hasn't been much interest in it.
Boy. Folks, I've been speaking with Mr. Matthew Vadum. He is the senior editor at the Capital Research Center, which is a very prominent think tank here in Washington, D.C. We're talking about his book, Subversion Incorporated. It's published by WorldNet Daily, and it exposes, it's encyclopedic, really, with respect to this odious ACORN, which is still alive.
And I set up there's a Facebook page for the book as well, facebook.com/Subversion Inc. with no dot at the end. So facebook.com/Subversion Inc. will tell you more about the book.
All right. Matthew, thanks so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again, Mr. Liddy, and have me back. I'll tell you more from this massive tome I put together.
I guarantee you we'll have you back. No question about that. We've had you before, and we'll have you again.
Here, of course, we celebrate Halloween. In Mexico, they call it what? Day of the Dead, where people believe the dead rise and walk the earth again, or as the folks at ACORN call it, voter registration day.
This is the G. Gordon Liddy Show.